Good morning. Happy Monday. Happy Monday morning chats, but happy Tuesday morning. So hello and thank you for joining us. Those that have been very patiently waiting for us to jump on this week. It's lovely to finally be here with you. Please jump on and say where you're tuning in from. Say hi. We'd love to say hi and hear who's with us. So today we are talking all things boundaries and creating the life you want. And again, Nicolette is often the one that gets the download of what we're going to chat about, and it comes from a place of inspiration. So I'm always eager to hear what's been going on for you, and what's been generating. So what comes up for you when we talk about boundaries?
So boundaries is a massive topic. As usual, we don't bite off the small ones, but boundaries is everything. Boundaries to me is everything in your life that you want to be sustainable. So if you don't have the right boundaries in place, and you're constantly being your boundaries are constantly being ridden over, then the sustainability goes out of what you can actually contribute, or what you can actually keep on moving on with. For myself, this has been a really, and is still a really steep learning curve, because I'm naturally a bit of a pleaser. I don't like confrontation at all. And so when we have to speak up and voice something that we're not happy with, or we don't want to happen again, or there's going to be a level of confrontation that is needed in that interaction with the other person. So it's not an easy, and even just talking about it, you can probably feel this area here, throat chakra down to heart, is like, it's awful. But when we're able to step through the fear and step into an interaction based on wanting a deeper connection and wanting respect to go both ways with people, that is always felt on the other side. Well, maybe not always, but it should be always felt on the other side, because the intention behind it is for that longevity of relationship, right? And to be our best selves and not feel trodden down.
Absolutely. And you absolutely nailed that point of what often constricts us is the idea that if I put in place a boundary, it's going to mean loss of connection. And obviously we're geared away from that because we've evolved to be one of kin. So at a very, very deep level, essentially, if you boil every fear down to their core fears, there's two: fear of being alone, being cut off from kin, and fear of dying. And really, from an evolutionary perspective, if you're alone, it meant that you were exposed to death anyway. So at a very, very, very deep level, the reason why we feel it at such that at a visceral physiological level is because it activates the core fear of disconnection, which means drill down, I'm alone, death. So it's a very active process to open up and actually recognize that boundary setting and language is also everything. We anyone that knows me well knows that that's something that I'm really passionate about. So if boundary setting, because obviously to set a boundary is looking at putting something in place, and then that triggers that sense of disconnect. So if our purpose is to maintain connection through teaching people what's okay for us and what's not, then that, like you said, deepens the connection. And you can do it in a kind and compassionate way where you're also holding the intention to understand the other person. And keenly, this is something that I've carried with me since my very early days when I started working within peer groups. The rule, because if people walk in with a lot of ego or feeling need to make sure that they're heard or their needs are met or they're validated the most, it can come at the cost of others' integrity. So there has to be the keen intention that this is to maintain everyone's integrity, and everyone walks away from the interaction with their integrity intact. And that's in service of the long-term connections.
Absolutely. And it feels so unnatural for us, because of all of the reasons you just listed, to put up a boundary and to say what is okay and what is not okay. But the truth is, on the other side of it is deeper connection. And because you're allowing yourself to be that vulnerable with the other person, quite often there is a lot more depth and integrity to the relationship. It's an authentic relationship. It's not built on lies and just brushing over those feelings of, oh, I don't like this. I wanted to use a really simple example. As parents, all those parents out there, you'll know what I'm talking about. Our children test our boundaries all the time. And I like to be the sort of mother that if my daughter if she forgets her lunch at home and she rings or texts me and says, "Mom, I've got my lunch," I'll jump straight in the car and take her lunch. Or I quickly jump to what my kids need, because I want them to feel that they are loved and nurtured and all of those things. However, there are some things that make me feel like a maid. And I voiced to my daughter the other day that when she makes scrambled eggs and she leaves the pan on the stove and goes to school and doesn't clean the pan, and I'm expected to clean it, it makes me feel like the maid. And so now if she's running short of time or she doesn't get it cleaned, she'll say, "Oh, I'm sorry, Mum, I'll do that this afternoon. I'll wash that up for you this afternoon." And it's such a small thing, but that acknowledgement of the boundary that I was setting, of being like, enough is enough. This is not, this little thing is not okay. All the other things are fine. This little thing is not okay.
Yeah.
Makes me feel valued, and that my needs are being heard and met. And I feel that I'm modeling that for her as well.
Yeah, beautiful. Beautiful. Absolutely. And the expression, the devil is in the detail. Often we retreat on what's important to us, micro step by micro step. And then it's not until we're feeling at our wit's end, and then by typically that point, you're at your threshold, so you're more inclined to kind of lash out. So when you take into account, what do I want my life to look like, and what are the standards of my life, and not in a draconian way.
What does that mean?
Just in like an authoritarian way, like a dictatorship. So not in a dictatorship way of, these are the standards of my life, and you must obey. Just in the fact that we teach people how to treat us all the time, and in those little moments. And obviously we understand that people get busy and they're consumed with what they need to get done and their time demands and all the rest of it. And if we can recognize it at the time, and also that means recognizing, well, what are the standards of my life, which is its own piece of work, then it becomes part of your habits of gently correcting, like you did there. When you do this, makes me feel like a maid. And you own that. And I know the beautiful relationship that you have with Millie, and I know how you're able to have those conversations, because that has been built from the ground up in terms of authenticity and honesty and correcting as you go. It's not okay, well, we've got these expectations, they're never spoken about. The kid goes wayward, and now we're going to jump up and make a song and dance because they're all the way over here, and we have held, probably subconsciously and not communicated necessarily in a kind and compassionate way, if ever, that these are the expectations. So that dialogue is pivotal to boundary setting or teaching people how to treat us, or what the standards of our life are.
And the little things are important, because when we ignore the little things and we reach that threshold, and then all of a sudden, and we're fueled with this story that's going on in our head of like, how can she not see that I feel like the maid? It's like, because you haven't communicated that, and then all of a sudden the frying pan's flying across the kitchen or whatever, and the other person's like, what just happened?
Exactly. No, and it's you also raised a really good point right at the very beginning of how do we define ourselves, and how does that play out in terms of implementing boundaries. So the word you used was, I'm a bit of a pleaser. From a language perspective, I might tweak that and say, you're giving, you're nurturing, maintaining connection is highly important to you, and you get joy out of seeing other people joyful. So that's how I like language tweak that, right? Because the labels that we place on ourselves are really important. However, I think so many people, particularly women who are often put in the pleaser, nurturer, facilitator, host role, have also been acculturated to give and give and give and give. So how is that conditioning and those labels playing out? And is there a subconscious story that if I implement a boundary or say what's okay for me or not, that I'm then somehow invalidating the role I'm supposed to play?
That's right. And my mum always taught me that it is so important, it's imperative to be kind, always be kind. And I think that it's not until I learnt that I needed to be kind to myself first, that the depth of my kindness and compassion and love for other people is far greater, because I have more capacity to give.
Absolutely. And it's funny that you say that, because two things are kind of triggered for me when you bring that up. One, I'm very much the same in that kindness is a top value of mine, so it tends to just pour out of me. It's not really a tap that I'm very good at switching on or off. It's like it's pretty well an ever presence. Yeah. And then in saying that, I had a dear friend of mine say, be kind, always be kind, until you can no longer be kind. So, and I absorbed it at the time in going, it's a fair point, because at some point in time, if we're not getting the results that we're after, there needs to be change. Now, you can always exit or leave or implement a boundary or educate in a kind way. So I would say that's the caveat. However, we also do need to take accountability for what's working for me and what's not. Am I ultimately headed in the path that I desire, with the relationships that I desire, with people who actually champion and get joy out of your success and momentum? Or am I finding myself in environments with people who are attached to old versions of who we are? because the aim, in my perspective, is to continuously develop. So, and we talk a lot about the grief journey that means for ourselves. And there's also a grief journey for people who care about us, love us, and have become attached to the previous versions of ourselves, because they may or may not be willing or wanting to develop in the same way that you are. And that's perfectly okay. So sometimes part of the boundary setting is simply acknowledging that's totally okay. I don't actually need you to be any other version of who you currently are in order to still value you, in order to still have unconditional love for you. And as part of the unconditional love I have for myself, I'm going to continue down this path because for whatever reason, I can't not. There's something there for me, and the part of me that knows is willing me forward, and I'm okay for the path to deviate, for you to experience life as you see fit. And I love you and thank you for everything that we have shared and have experienced together, and that will always be treasured. And there will always be an open door should you choose to come and experience some of what I am now engaging in. And if not, that's okay. We can still connect and
and it's that, and I feel that boundary setting for yourself when you are when you're wanting to move forward in a certain direction and people aren't going in that same direction is just simply, I do not need your approval. I do not need your approval to love you and for you to love me. So there's a real because I think where people come unstuck in life is that they're constantly seeking the approval of someone that's not themselves, and that's what leads us to not set healthy boundaries and to be led down paths that aren't right for us, because we're seeking this approval that is actually, it's not right for us. It's not the right fit. And the boundary needs to be set if you're going to make a change in your life. Really great example. You know how I like to use real-time examples. I made a new friend recently, and last night I went through a bit of a self-pity cycle. And this morning when I went to the gym, if anyone's seen my stories this morning, I did not want to be at the gym, and I was in this self-pity of like, nothing's changing. Like, I've been going to the gym and I've been drinking less and I've been eating well and I don't feel any better about myself, and like in this whole self-pity spiral. And what actually snapped me out of it was she said the words, I have been in self-pity for a lot of my life, and my focus now is on gratitude. So I keep coming back to gratitude. And I thought, this new friend is someone that I've brought into my sphere because that's the path I want to go down as well. So when I slip into self-pity, I don't want to be hanging around people who are also in self-pity that connect with me there, because that just anchors me there. That's not where I want to be. I want to be in gratitude and in, pride of myself, and in with the people who champion me and lift me out of that, BS cycle that I go in, and everyone goes in occasionally.
Absolutely. And it's actually a skill to champion someone else. It's called empathic joy. And you want to surround yourself with people that get zest and enjoyment out of seeing you flourish. And when that comes from a really real place, and when that is their home, there's a natural buoyancy to the interaction. So, and if we have found ourselves caught in suffering, which is a part of life is not void of suffering. And then again, it's a skill to learn how to scaffold yourself out of suffering through a process of what do I need to let go of, what do I need to heal, what do I need to set my focus on, what do I need to embody in terms of leaving that, essentially transcending that suffering. They're all skills. So if just by nature of circumstance, because often the people that we hang out with is a matter of circumstance, it's a matter of environment. And we've all heard that idea that we are the sum total of the 5 people that we hang out with the most. And
lucky I hang out with you so much.
yeah, ditto. We're both very high on empathic joy.
Yeah, we are. I feel like you guys witnessed before how if I say something that's slightly negative about myself, Asha will reframe it in a way that's like, no, you're beautiful all the time.
Yeah. I can't help myself. And it's in recognizing that every trait is a double-edged sword, right? And that's another thing that people will often hear me say. So if we know that within ourselves, every trait that we house is a double-edged sword, also within those people that are closest to us, their top traits are also going to be double-edged swords. They will be working for them and they will be working against them. And depending on how much their demons or shadows or their lower vibrational self, so to speak, is out to play, it will then also have the potential of how much you getting cut by their double-edged swords. And that's where boundary setting becomes really impactful for the best possible way, because those moments where you can kindly and compassionately reflect back to someone, oh, that part of you just fired and I can see how much suffering you're in. And by extension, that's now rippling out around you. And for me, I can see that that's actually taking you off your path. They're those moments where, as a friend or a family member, or it may be more in a professional capacity, you reflect those back to people through the kindness and compassion and just simply mirroring that back. People can then start to take account for their life in a much more meaningful, eyes wide open way.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. This morning when I got to coffee with Andrew and I was like, I'm not doing, I'm not where I wanted to be and I don't see any progress and he's just said to me, well, you're inside your body, so you can't see the progress, but I can. So that's a really great example of, surrounding yourself with people who are who can see what you can't see when you're in the mist.
Absolutely. And it's also the recognition of when are my expectations cutting me, and also where are my expectations. And part of what I also wanted to speak about today was often with boundary setting, we conceptualize it in what am I keeping out or what am I protecting myself from. The boundaries, if you've set a boundary for yourself, the reverse is also true of how am I keeping myself small? How am I keeping myself inward? So and that can very much.
What are the big sticks that I'm beating myself with
exactly
to keep me safe, because that's where we want to be. We want to stay safe.
That's right. And usually they're our biggest blind spots. So in terms of assessing your current boundaries, it's not only what is currently being cost versus where am I giving, where it's not moving me towards the life that I want. Where am I attracting the people that I do want, in terms of that concept of who I surround myself with, I become. And then where are my boundaries of my current status quo or level of life or expectation, because they will have created the life that you currently have. So then where is your current life not mapping on to the life that you ultimately want? And then what needs to be expanded in terms of a personal boundary that you're now willing and open to dissolving, so you can become a more expanded version of self. And you hit the nail on the head in terms of safety. So for me personally, with some of the work that I have done in the past, safety has been something of a real practical matter, where physical safety has been something to give due respect. So part of that meant subconsciously, I also got very, very good at protecting and housing myself. And so then in stepping more into the entrepreneurial space, part of that expanding process is actually letting some of those protective barriers down in going, no, I'm willing, and I'm willing to show up. I'm willing to be in new environments, even if I don't have the level of autonomy or control that ultimately I'm used to or have become comfortable with, but I willingly embrace the new and each and every new version of myself, so I can become the most expanded version of myself, which means recognizing the boundaries that are currently keeping us in.
Because there's a fear that we go into in that, if I am this open, what am I letting in? And all of the empaths, people who feel that they're very empathic, will know exactly what I'm talking about here. But the truth is that we always have control over our boundaries, and we always have control over our energy field, and anything that enters or leaves our field, we say whether that's okay or not. So the best way to achieve the greatest connections, be the most empathic, be the most genuine, is to have firm boundaries about what we let in and what we don't. You know, being an entrepreneur and being on multiple different social media platforms, I learned early on that if I'm afraid of every person who friends me on Facebook, that they're going to be a spammer or you know, someone who isn't a genuinely nice person, then I won't friend anyone on Facebook and I won't advance my reach. But if I know that as soon as I feel a bit of, oh, that person's not right, I can just hit the block button, and that's my boundary, then I feel perfectly safe in that environment. So there's ways that we can be open and generous if we are willing to set the boundaries, to not set the boundaries and to not live in a fear state, because we have control.
Yeah, exactly. And with that, with everything that we talk about, it all comes back to the learning journey. So fundamentally, always being kind and compassionate with ourselves as well as we grow, because none of these concepts are easy. Teaching people how to treat us isn't a skill where we're kind of born with, because we're indoctrinated to just be polite and kind, and with this expectation that if I treat people like that, then that's what I'll get in return. But we all know that there's instances where that's not the case. So then we have to learn new skills, and each and every time that we're learning, it ultimately comes back to being kind and compassionate and acknowledging for ourselves that I am learning. And if you're learning, that means you are becoming the newest version of you. And then we just want to do that with full conscious awareness. So as we learn, we continue to become more of who we want to be from a very aware place.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm. Cool.
We've nailed it time-wise. 32 minutes. That's great. I love this topic of boundaries, and I've been listening to a lot of Brene Brown on this topic. I highly recommend her YouTube and podcasts for those of you who haven't heard her before. And we're pretty excited because we've got a workshop coming up on the 30th of April. That's a half day commitment from you, and we're looking for 10 people to join us on an ascension journey. So
Yes.
yeah, if you would like to join us, just let us know and we can send you the info on that.
Beautiful. Well, thanks so much for joining. And yeah, we look forward to chatting next week. And yeah, and continuing to watch the magic unfold.
Bye, everybody. Have a fabulous week.